Hey there, Jake here from CVP. This is Canon's latest cinema EOS camera, the C50. And it's actually one of Canon's smallest cinema EOS cameras to date, and is clearly aimed to compete with the Sony FX2 and FX3. In this video, we'll be taking a look at how the C50 performs, comparing it to Canon's other cinema EOS cameras, as well as the competition, and explore whether or not this exciting new camera is worth grabbing for your next project. Let's get into it. Canon were only able to send us this camera for a couple of days of testing, but we've tried to shoot as much as we could with it. We managed to take it down to the fantastic Loxwood Joust and shoot some other bits around our Brentford office to get some hands-on time with the camera, capturing some creative examples. After using the Blackmagic 17K to shoot the Joust the week before, using this camera for the same kind of shoot was a completely different experience, given how compact the C50 is and the fact that it has very good autofocus. The weather wasn't quite as dynamic and bright as the 17K shoot, but it was far more overcast, which is a bit of a shame. Throughout the day, we shot a mixture of handheld, on tripod, and on an RS4 Pro, and used a range of different Canon lenses. Though we mainly use Canon's VCM series of primes, including their new 85mm f1.4. These all provide very nice, clean imagery, which for more video-orientated work is good. We also shot some stills with the C50, and these look great as well. They're very detailed and full of lovely, punchy Canon colours. Let us know what you think of the images we've managed to capture down below. The C50 features a brand new 7K full-frame sensor, which has a resolution of 6960 by 4640 and a size when recording of 35.9 by 23.9mm, giving it a pixel pitch of roughly 5.16 microns. It is paired with a Digic DV7 processor, and Canon has rated it to capture up to 15 plus stops of dynamic range, which sounds very impressive. It's great to see Canon using another new sensor that I don't believe they've even used in one of their stills cameras yet. 7K or 32 megapixels is definitely on the higher end for a video focused camera, but this resolution does mean that the images this camera can capture are very detailed. Anyway, let's take a look at how this camera performs, starting with our Latitude tests. For these tests we grabbed a few cameras we think the C50 could be compared to that we had available. So in this test we have the Sony FX3, Canon C50, C80 and R5C, Panasonic's S1 II, and the Blackmagic Pixis 6K. For these tests we used our 50mm Nissi Athena and then PL adapters from Nissi across all of the different cameras. Here's a breakdown of our methodology for these tests and the different formats we shot across the different cameras. Right, let's take a look at the results. Starting with our overexposure testing, we can see that the C50 performs well up to around 4 1/3 stops over, where we can see the white chip on our chart starting to clip. At 5 we can see Sam's skin going, and this breaks further as we hit 6 stops over. The C80 has similar performance, but I would say is ever so slightly a bit more clipped on Sam's skin at the equivalent stop. With the R5C we can again see similar performance to the previous two, though it may clip ever so slightly faster than the C50 on Sam's skin. The Pixis seems to perform a touch better than the other cameras so far. The white chip seems to clip at around 4 2/3 stops over, and Sam's skin tone seems to be held a little bit better. The S1 II performs similarly to the C50, and the FX3, which has the disadvantage of shooting in a non-RAW codec, performs well considering that. We can see Sam's skin slightly changing at 4 stops over, but from here performance looks good up to 5 stops. And then from there things start to clip. But this is only half of the story. Let's take a look at underexposure. When we underexpose the C50, we can see pretty heavy chroma noise at around -3 stops. Colours are held well though. At 4 stops under, it would be quite usable with some noise reduction, but from here you have some pretty heavy pink chroma noise. The C80 has less pink noise at equivalent stops to the C50, but colour isn't quite as rich. The noise does seem a bit more blocky than the C50 as well. Looking at the R5C, -3 looks really good. It has some noise but way less chroma than the C50. At -4, it looks really good. It almost looks like there's a bit more chroma noise reduction happening behind the scenes as colours are a little bit less saturated, but this performance is pretty impressive. The Pixis has obvious CMOS smearing at -2 onwards. At -3, it has a slight green and pink shift, but colour is still alright. The S1 II at -4 looks good. It holds onto colour and detail really well, but does get noisy at 5. But overall, performance is very good here. Lastly, the FX3. At -3, it looks decent. At -4, you can see a bit of CMOS smearing, which is present as we go into the deeper stops. Let us know what you think of the results down below. I think another interesting differentiator here between these cameras during this test was their general colour. A competent colorist will of course be able to match a lot of these clips. But there are people out there delivering faster turnaround projects where straight out of camera colour or fast colour workflows are very important. All of these examples were white balanced at the beginning of each test, but we've corrected them in Resolve as well. These example shots are the base shots of under and over, white balance corrected, and then a simple CST in Resolve from each camera's gamma and colour space to Rec 709 gamma 2.4 is applied. Let us know which one you like the look of down in the comments. Right, let's talk about the camera's sensor readout speed. For these controlled tests, we are using our own in-house measuring tool and software so we can give you some numbers and compare them to other cameras we've measured before. In the camera's full frame 3x2 mode, we get a readout time of roughly 18 milliseconds. Dropping down to full frame 16 or 17x9 improves this time again as you are using less height of the sensor. If you want to get the fastest performance out of the camera, you'll need to head into the Super 16 mode, though here you are of course cropping in massively. Compared to some other cameras at its price, its performance isn't bad. Sub 20 milliseconds is good, and it's a little bit faster than the R5C, which should be expected because of the decrease in resolution. During our filming, we really didn't notice much warping from the readout, though if you pan fast enough you will see it, but how often are you filming like this? When it comes to colour, the C50 behaves similarly to other modern cinema EOS systems. You have the ability to capture C-Log2, C-Log3, and a range of 709 and HDR profiles. It's great to see C-Log2 here, as the R5C didn't have that in camera, though you could decode the raw footage from that camera as C-Log2. When it comes to straight out of camera colour profiles, I personally like the YDR profile as it provides a nice 709-ish image without the highlights looking too funky. We captured most of our creative examples in RAW and then processed them through Resolve, and the colours look as you'd expect from a Canon cinema camera. They are punchy and natural and overall just very nice. In the menu you can dive deep into each profile and create your own as well. This is where you can dial in the level of noise reduction as well, which you may want to do as it's just on auto by default. Talking about noise reduction, let's take a look at how it performs in low light and how the noise looks. The C50 has a dual base ISO which changes depending on what gamma profile you are in. In C-Log2, C-Log3 and RAW, it has a low base of 800 and a high of 6400. And in the 709 profiles, these halve to 400 and 3200. In RAW and log, 800 and 6400 are a good pairing. 6400 is a nice high point without it being too high for some brighter situations. In the menu, you can switch between the two ISOs or have the camera in auto selection mode, where it switches automatically at the high base. Looking at our port cap noise testing, we can see how much of a difference there is between 6400 ISO at the low and high base. The high mode is much cleaner, which is good to see, and so is 5000. When shooting RAW in lower light, I think you really need to do some noise reduction in post, but that's pretty common when you are shooting RAW. If you shoot something like YDR XFAVC, you can see that more noise reduction is going on, especially chroma, which is pretty noticeable in RAW. Even with the YDR noise reduction set to automatic, it does a good job at cleaning things up. The C50's different recording formats can be broken down into the sensor mode and then the recording format. When you choose what sensor mode you want to be in, this will change the portion of the sensor you are using. This includes full frame, Super 35 and Super 16 sensor modes, but also the new full frame open gate 3x2 mode. This is a first in a Canon camera and great to finally see. You can record in cinema raw light and compressed formats, which is nice, but you are limited to just 30 frames per second in this sensor mode across them all, and you are even restricted to some flavors of these formats. I personally find the 3x2 aspect ratio really nice, even as a delivery aspect ratio. But of course, the big reason people want to use it is for dual format acquisition, aka shooting for a portrait and landscape deliverable. Having the extra height over shooting 16 or 17x9 full frame is very helpful for this, and is also great for anamorphic shooting. When you use something like this 1.5 times Atlas Mercury, you get a D-squeeze aspect ratio of 2.25 to 1, which is a nice place to be at to then crop to the different anamorphic delivery aspect ratios. The camera has a range of D-squeezes built in now as well, which you can use on the rear LCD or output, which is nice. When it comes to recording codecs, you have a really nice mixture of different options to choose from. The C50 can record in Canon's excellent Cinema Raw Light in a few different compressions, LT, ST, and HQ, though you are limited in certain modes. LT will give you the lowest data rate but most compression, and HQ will give you the least compression but highest data rate. We shot quite a bit of RAW and it processed through Resolve nicely. We use CRL quite a bit in the studio with our C80, and it now performs well in Premiere thanks to a few different updates that it's had over the years. The C50 can also record in a few different versions of Canon's XF format, XF-AVC, XF-AVC-S, and XF-HEVC-S. XF-AVC-S and XF-HEVC-S are MP4 based, whereas normal XF-AVC uses the MXF container. You can also choose from a mix of bit depth and chroma subsampling across these different options. XF-AVC-S uses H.264 compression, whereas XF-HEVC-S uses H.265 HEVC compression. H.265 support is great in post now, so this is good to see. It's great that you have options for different production needs. Here's a table of the different formats and their rough data rates. Given the camera's high resolution, it's unsurprising that you can capture some nicely detailed imagery. All of our testing with the camera has been with the detail and sharpening settings set to the defaults for each profile we've shot in, though you can adjust these if you do want to. Taking a look at our focus chart, we can see that our 7K RAW clips look good, with minimal moire or aliasing. Some of the lower resolution modes do have more visible aliasing though, but our focus chart is a serious stress test for this, and during our shoot with the C50 in real world situations, we didn't notice it too much. When in the camera's full frame 16 or 17:9 mode, you can shoot different compressed codec 4K options, and this downsamples about 7K's worth of the sensor, which means you get some really good looking 4K footage if you don't want to shoot RAW. This is a great option to have, as there are plenty of productions where shooting some flavour of XF will be more than enough, and it's good you get the benefits of downsampling with the file sizes of 4K XF. If you want to get a bit of a softer look, I think the best way to do this is with lensing and filtration. When we paired the C50 with Joe's used and abused 50mm f1.2 EF, which has plenty of character and certainly doesn't resolve as well as Canon's modern RF primes, you can see how much of a difference that makes to the image. When it comes to high frame rates, you have a mix of different options available. In RAW, you can record 7K 3x2 open gate up to 30 frames per second. In 7K 16:9, you can go up to 60 frames per second. In 5K Super 35 again, up to 60 frames per second. And in 2.5K Super 16, you can go up to 150 frames per second. In XF-AVC, you can go up to 120 in 4K and 180 frames per second in 2K with no crop. The higher resolution frame rate stuff looks really good. It's very detailed and just looks great. The lower resolution crop RAW footage definitely needs some denoising to get the most out of it though, but given it's RAW and there's not much denoising happening in camera by default, that's not too surprising. Like Canon's other Cinema EOS cameras, the C50 doesn't have any sensor-based stabilisation, just digital IS, which you can enable in the menu. Given how compact and lightweight this camera is, the footage can have some micro jitters when you aren't using any stabilisation equipment around it. You can help mitigate this by using lens stabilisation, adding weight to the camera with a rig or other accessories, and use support equipment around the camera such as an easy rig, saddle or gimbal. But I think there are going to be plenty of people that just want to use the camera by itself. But I really suggest if you do want to do that, please explore these different stabilisation methods. Canon offer a good few RF lenses with image stabilisation built in, such as their 24-70 f2.8, which we often use when capturing BTS with our C80 because it has image stabilisation. I do wish there were more primes from Canon with stabilisation, as it's very handy to have for handheld video shooters, but at least you have some options. The digital stabilisation in this camera cannot be used in RAW, but can across the other compressed format modes. You have two modes, standard and high. Both of these will crop in on your image slightly, but high crops in a good chunk more. You also have the option to enable motion vector for digital IS. This should improve overall stabilisation performance, but when filming a subject, it may cause the image to shake along with that subject. We wanted to put this to the test, so did some brief back-to-back testing using the RF 24-70mm f2.8. We shot a few different clips using the different modes, of me walking behind Sam at 24mm. Looking at the different clips, I think the best looking one is the lens optical stabilisation, with no digital stabilisation. The digital stabilisation does help smooth out me walking, but it definitely doesn't do as good of a job as proper sensor-based stabilisation on Canon's other cameras. For some filmmakers, using it hard mounted to cars or an FPV drone, no sensor stabilisation will be a good thing. But for most of the target audience of this camera, I think stabilisation would have been a great addition. Up next, let's check out how this camera handles infrared light pollution. For these tests, we grabbed a range of different black fabrics, as different types will behave differently to each other, and then blasted an ARRI blonde at them. We then went through the range of our Polar Pro variable ND, adjusting aperture on our lens to keep the exposure consistent. This is an unnamed camera with its OLPF removed as an extreme example of what IR pollution does to your image. Starting off, looking at the camera with no ND at all, we can see that as we go through the different stops, there is only a very minor colour shift, with it looking a tiny bit more purple towards the deeper stops, but not by much. It handles this really well, and when shooting outside with an ND, which we did a lot, we didn't run into any issues. An internal ND system is certainly something that I wish this camera had, but I understand that cramming an ND into a camera this size is going to be somewhat challenging. One day I would love to see a camera this size get an internal ND system and stabilisation. But in the meantime, at least you have the option for either lens adapter filtration or traditional front mounted options. Currently, we use the Polar Pro 2 to 5 stop Peter McKinnon VND across our stills lenses when we use them in our camera tests. And then when we adapt to something like PL, our go-to is normally one of Kipitai's systems, as their ND quality is really good. When it comes to autofocus, the C50 features Canon's dual pixel CMOS AF2. In the stills mode, it's very snappy, which is good considering it's using the Digic 7 processor instead of their latest Digic X. In video mode, it does a good job at tracking Sam in the frame, even when he is quite far away. When out shooting on location, we use the autofocus a lot, mainly with the tap to track function. Even with fast moving subjects like these horses during the joust, the camera does a fantastic job at keeping them in focus, and it does a great job of recognising subjects as well. In the menu, you can control the parameters of the autofocus like most other modern Canon Cinema EOS systems. You can control the tracking subject and how the focus behaves with them. You can dial in the focusing speed and how fast it is to switch between subjects. Dialing it down to focus slower helps create a more natural pull, which I find nice to use when doing a pull between two different subjects. Canon have also added focus breathing correction, which is similar to the systems found on other cameras. This crops in slightly, but then corrects the breathing across all of Canon's RF mount lenses, which is pretty nice. Looking at this example with the 50mm f1.4 VCM, you can see that it does do a good job at doing this. If you want to keep up with the latest and greatest kit, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want to buy anything you see in this video, want to get your hands on the C50 or any other kit for that matter, head over to cvp.com where our experienced team is waiting to help you. The C50 is kind of like if Canon took an R5C, chopped the EVF off, and then redesigned the layout to be similar to the FX3. Given the popularity of the FX3, this isn't too surprising, but putting them side by side, they are very similar to each other, but the C50 is a little bit chunkier, but surprisingly light in the hand, weighing roughly 670 grams. In the hand, this camera feels very good. The grip is pretty substantial, and while still being light, it does feel nice to operate in the hand. Along the top, we have a witness mark for the sensor, a nice multi-function shoe, which you can use with a range of digital accessories, the two mounting points for the included top handle, which we'll talk about in a bit, and two mics which are for scratch audio. On the right of the top, there's an array of buttons. This includes 6 of the rebindable function buttons, which are set as they are marked out of the box. We also have a nice record button, zoom rocker for RF servo lenses, and dials for control, one at the front and one at the back. On the bottom, we can see just a single thread with a locating pin hole behind it, which will be helpful for some tripods. But I really wish this hole was just a thread instead, as it would make mounting a tripod or gimbal plate much more secure without a base plate or cage. I'm sure an accessory brand like Small Rig, Tilter or Bright Tangerine will make some kind of solution for this. On the front you have 2 buttons, one which is a record button by default, which is nice, and one for AF lock. On the right you then have the media door and a 1/4-20 mounting thread. The media slot has these nice little LEDs above it that show you what you have in the slot and whether or not it's ready to record or not. When the light is green, it means obviously it's good to go, and when the light is red, it means that the card is being written to. This is a really nice touch. On the left you have a range of inputs and outputs, another Q20 mounting thread, and a vent for cooling. Let's quickly walk through the I/O on the side of the camera. First off, you have a 3.5mm mic input, 3.5mm headphone out port, and a 2.5mm remote port. Next to them, you have a nice full-size HDMI port and a USB-C port, which can be used for a bunch of things, including powering the camera. Above that, you have a DIMM port, which can be used for timecode. It's a really nice range to have, and the covers get out of the way nicely as well without blocking too much. The back of the camera is laid out pretty similarly to other Canon R series stills cameras. It has a nice joystick, jog wheel, a mode dial, and a good range of buttons. The rear LCD is a pretty regular looking flippy, swivelly panel that looks good to the eye. We did have to crank the brightness up to maximum when we were shooting outside though, but that's quite normal. You can see another vent on the back here as well, which again is part of the cooling system. There are a range of buttons across the camera, and the layout of them is pretty good when shooting. There are 14 buttons in total that you can reassign in the menu, and you can create your own My Menu for your most used settings here as well. The camera has a fan-based active cooling system to help keep it cool. You can control this in the menu as well. This can be set to automatic or controlled across the separate modes. When set to maximum, you can really hear it pretty obviously, but on the lower modes, it's pretty quiet. The new included top handle with the C50 is a really great addition, and honestly, I wish this was something that the C70 and C80 could use instead of the ones that they come with, which don't have any control on them at all. This handle has an XLR audio module and a range of different controls. It interfaces via the multifunction shoe on the camera and screws down onto the top using these threads. It has a nice record button on the top and a zoom rocker. Having the record button here is awesome, as it makes hitting recording when shooting at lower angles really easy. With other cameras like the FX3, the top handle doesn't have any controls on for the camera, just the XLR module. And this is something I've wanted to see on those cameras too, like the FX6's top handle, which is excellent as well. It also has a cold shoe mount on the top of the handle and a couple of 1/4" threads for mounting different accessories. The handle feels really nice in the hand as well. It isn't made from the same scratchy plastic that the C80 handle uses. It's much nicer to hold and balances the camera really nicely. The camera has tally lamps at the front, the back, and on the handle here. You can turn these on and off in the menu though, if you do want to. Canon have done a really nice job here with this handle. It's a really great addition. The audio capabilities that the handle allows for is great. Having the ability to run full-size XLR sources into a camera this small is really helpful. The control on the side of the XLR unit is also great and easily accessible for when you do need to change it up. The sound quality from the XLRs is good, which we should expect from Canon at this point. Preamps they use in their Cine EOS cameras have always been good. When filming at the joust, we use this little Readout HC15 to capture audio throughout the day, and it all sounds good.
That's interesting. That's not uninteresting.
Got some, yeah. Good luck with that.
We'll be back.
FSL.
The camera also has a 3.5mm mic input on the body and a headphone jack for monitoring. This is good in case you want to run the camera on a gimbal without the handle on, but still want an audio source going into the camera. It also has scratch mics built in, which are positioned on the top of the camera here. The camera also has a timecode DIMM port for jamming the camera, which is great to see in something this compact. The C50 has a dual card slot on the right hand side of the camera, which houses one CF Express Type B slot and one SD UHS 2 slot. Which media type you want to use will depend on what format you want to record in. To shoot RAW, you will need to use a CF Express Type B card, and with the compressed formats, you can either go to CF Express or SD card. Canon have a few specific SD and CF Express Type B cards that they have approved. Here's a list of them. You should be able to record onto any card that can handle these types of data rates, but it's just not going to be 100% approved by Canon. You can also choose what the second card slot does separately to your main one. You can choose from proxy, sub, crop, audio, and chunk recording alongside your main format. Proxy will allow you to record proxies, sub allows you to choose from a few different recording formats while recording RAW to your main card, and audio records a separate audio track to your SD card. The crop and chunk recording functions are new to the C50. The crop mode allows you to capture both a regular landscape frame and also a 9:16 portion of your image and record two separate files to your recording media. In the menu, you can change the portion of the recorded 9:16 frame across your landscape frame. These files will be limited to 1080p, but will be more than good enough quality for fast turnaround social media delivery. This is a really cool addition to the camera, and I'm sure will be very useful for some shooters, but it's currently not possible in the camera's open gate mode. Shooting open gate allows you to have the extra height to get the most out of your portrait footage while not compromising your landscape frame, so I think it would have been good to have this mode available in open gate. Next you have chunk mode. This allows you to record regularly to one card, and then on your second card it will record the video file into smaller chunks, which you can define the length of in the menu between 30 seconds, 1 and 2 minutes. Canon has said this has been designed for people to be able to share clips easier than having to trim down a much longer file. This could come in handy for something like podcasts or corporate productions. You also have the ability for double slot recording and relay recording, which will be helpful for certain productions. The C50 uses Canon's RF mount, which has a flange depth of 20mm. This means you can easily adapt to loads of other lenses that have a larger flange than it, like EF and PL. This also includes focal reducers or speed boosters and rear filtration adapters, which could come in very handy with the camera not having internal NDs. I like that it features the mounting screws around the mount, so you can use it with mounts that have the ability to be locked down to the body, like Canon's PL mount. This also includes this adapter from Kiptai, their new adapter LC. This will be available to take both EF and PL lenses, and will be available in RF, E, Z and L mount. The RF one has been designed to use the 4 mounting screws around the mount of the RF mount Cinema EOS cameras. It means you can also use Kiptai's LC Mini ND with it. This uses the latest generation of LC Tech's electronic variable ND to provide an ND range of 0.6 to 2.1, which you can control via Bluetooth or via controls on the cartridge itself. This also works with Canon's RF to EF drop-in filter adapter, but Kiptai's new mount is a much more robust option for video and cine users. This has far less color shift than other variable ND options, so it's definitely worth checking out if you want a really good variable ND mount system. Canon has slowly been releasing more and more RF mount lenses at different price points. You have good options now for zooms, primes, and specialty lenses. We used a mix of their f1.4 VCM primes, the 24-70 f2.8L, and 70-200 f2.8L, and they all performed really well on the C50. This new camera uses Canon's LPE6P battery, which has been a standard for ages, but does have its pros and cons. The R5C also uses LPE6, but at launch, this is one of its biggest downsides. Until more recent firmware and the introduction of the LPE6P with the R5 II, the R5C was known for having pretty poor battery life. However, now this new battery and new firmware has helped solve some of the powering issues that the R5C had. With the C50, as you switch between the different modes, you can see the predicted battery life changing in the top right. When out on location, we went through a good few batteries, and our first full LPE6P lasted about an hour and a bit in the camera, which resulted in about 40 minutes of actual recorded rushes. We also did a test in the studio where I recorded in 2K XFAVC to an empty card, with the rear LCD as bright as possible and a nice full LPE6P in the camera. Letting the camera just record until it died, we managed to record about 1 hour 45 minutes before it died, which is pretty good. In the menu there's also a really nice function called Power Source Navigation, which shows the limitations of using the different power sources with the camera. This shows that battery-wise, if you don't use an LPE6P, you will have some limitations. So if you're going to grab this camera, I suggest using LPE6 batteries if you can, or an external source if you're wanting to rig up the camera a bit more and power other accessories. The BG-R20 battery grip will also work with this new camera if you want to be able to run 2 batteries at the same time, and also change the ergonomics of the camera a little bit. It can also be powered via dummy LP6, as you can have the battery door open and still record and use the camera as normal. It also has a USB-C on the side, which is PD rated, so you can also power the camera via that as well. Canon do their own PD USB-C power supply, the PDE2, but you can use any 65 watt rated power supply or battery, which will certainly come in helpful. Just make sure your supply and cable can handle 65 watts. I also wanted to check if the battery life increases when you switch into the camera's playback mode when in video, and it doesn't. It seems like Canon has fixed this little trick that was possible with the R5C. Just like Canon did with the R5C, the C50 has the ability to switch between Canon's stills menu system and the Cinema EOS menu system. This made the R5C one of my favourite hybrid cameras ever, as both of these menu systems are excellent in their own way. The photo menu system in Canon stills cameras is really easy and fast to use, and then their Cinema EOS system is incredibly well featured for shooting video. The video system has a comprehensive range of shooting tools like the ability to use shutter speed or angle, false colour, waveforms, zebras, good peaking, aspect ratio overlays, and a bunch more. It's a Cinema EOS camera, so it behaves as such, and it really is a nice operating system to use when shooting video. Here are the times we recorded when turning the camera on and when switching between the different modes. It takes between 2 to 3 seconds to turn the camera on into either the photo or video mode. When switching from one mode to another, the times are a bit slower, with it taking just under 5 seconds from video to photo, and then about 7 seconds from photo to video. These times aren't bad, and does mean you can quickly switch between the two modes if you're shooting video and photo in a documentary style shoot where switching fast is crucial. The camera also remembers the settings across the two different modes, which means you don't accidentally shoot in log when shooting photos or a crunchy stills profile while in video. Like Canon's other modern Cinema EOS cameras, the C50 is a well-connected camera. It has Wi-Fi built in, and the USB-C can be used to adapt out to Ethernet. This means you can use the C50 for live streaming via IP or via USB directly into your computer via UVC. It has Canon's XC protocol, which means it can be controlled via Canon's control apps. You can also take advantage of Frame.io's camera to cloud workflow, and it can be used with Canon's Content Transfer Professional app. So yeah, it can slide into loads of different modern workflows and existing setups that use Canon cameras. The C50 certainly is a hybrid camera, but I think it is a more video-focused one, though it still is a competent photography camera. The 32 megapixel stills it can capture look great. These examples we've shot are JPEG straight out of the camera with some very subtle Lightroom edits. But as always, because we can't open the RAW files, we are limited with the edits that we can do. The C50 can shoot up to 40 frames per second, which uses an electronic shutter as the camera doesn't have a physical mechanical shutter. It also features the pre-continuous function found in the R1 and R5 II cameras and can shoot in a range of different file formats. It's a good stills camera for sure, and for hybrid shooters that lean more towards video but occasionally shoot stills and want that ability in a single camera, I think they'll be happy with the performance. The C50 is kind of a successor to the R5C, which we used in our studio for years because it is such a capable photo and video camera which we needed in one camera at the time. It's still a fantastic camera, especially thanks to the countless firmware updates that Canon have released for it and the introduction of the LPU6P battery, which has really helped improve the battery life of the camera. Personally, I think the R5C is a more photo-focused camera, as you have the viewfinder, higher resolution, and a physical design more like a mirrorless photography camera from Canon. The C50 is clearly more focused on shooting video. It has better dynamic range, the ability to shoot C.2 internally, better autofocus, the fantastic XLR top handle, and a new range of photo and video features that the R5C doesn't have. But overall, I think both of these cameras have their place in Canon's lineup. As we briefly mentioned earlier, alongside the C50, Canon have also announced a new 85mm f1.4 VCM prime. This new lens brings the VCM range to a total of 5 lenses now, from 20 to 85mm. We managed to use this lens not only on the C50, but also on the R5 II during our shoot at the Joust. It produces nice clean imagery, though with a slight swell to the bokeh, which is really nice. The VCM primes are a decent option for hybrid Canon shooters if you want something modern and clean. The C50 is a great little camera. With the insane popularity the FX3 has had, it makes sense that Canon would try and create a camera that truly competes with it. It can produce lovely detailed imagery, has typical Canon colours, is jam-packed with video features and different recording formats, has solid autofocus, offers great ergonomics and audio with the included handle, and a really versatile form factor that can be rigged up or kept stripped down for smaller support equipment. It's going to cost roughly £3,360, including VAT, which includes the top handle as part of the bundle. This positions it in the current market as such, but pricing can change, so if you want more accurate pricing, please check the links below to our site. Considering everything that it offers, it's pretty good value, and does have some unique pros some of its competition don't have. But cameras are tools, and which tool is right for you and the job you need to do will come down to you. So if you want to chat through which camera might be right for you, drop our sales or demo team an email or leave us a comment down below. I know this has been a long one, so if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching to the end. If you like the video, please give it a like and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on our awesome upcoming content. And thank you so much for watching.